Path of Titans sits among two other dinosaur games, The Isle and Bermuda, as being the three top dogs when it comes to the dinosaur survival genre. And while each game is different in their own regards, there are definitely some aspects which Path of Titans can learn from and perhaps even incorporate into the game. Today we are talking about just that, with each game holding their own key factors that I think could be incorporated into Path of Titans to make it an even better game than it currently is. For each dinosaur game, I've picked 3 different topics, which means 6 different topics overall. Now, please bear in mind, this doesn't mean that Path of Titans is severely lacking in some of these areas. It's maybe some slight tweaks or, stuff they can go for inspiration for expansive updates that they're already planning for the game. So that being said, let's start with The Isle, because I recently streamed The Isle growing a Triceratops, which ended in the most The Isle fashion, being murdered by a Diabloceratops in darkness. It was pitch black and I got hunted down and murdered. That being said, there are definitely some features that I definitely not want to be passed over from the island to Path of Titans, like the darkness of the nights. And well, if you think about the darkness of the nights in Path of Titans forests, you'll be stuck on every piece of foliage you'll ever encounter. But there are definitely 3 other features that I think could make the game even better. The first one is ambience. I think the Isle's ambience is done incredibly well. The environments are properly immersive, and while yes, your PC is fighting for its life, which will make it a lot harder for Path of Titans to do something like this since it is cross-platform, it's definitely something I'd love for them to take inspiration from, especially while they're doing these immersive ambience updates to the game. There was a specific moment when I was playing the Owl the other day, when I was a baby Triceratops and some older ones, not fully grown, they were around 60%, walked past. There was a sense of awe, there was a sense of, wow, this is actually really cool seeing a duo of ceratopsians in this prehistoric world. It felt like I was properly in a dinosaur world. And that couples with the gorgeous environment that the dinosaurs are in. The environment looks beautiful, and the ambience audio to go alongside it with the stingers and the systems that they have blends it together immensely. I know Path of Titans is currently going through an audio overhaul, especially for ambience audio, and that's why this is a good time to bring it up. But small things like distant audio and carrying of the sounds especially, it's not just adult broadcasts, it's, the footsteps aren't massively loud, but there is a sense there where things just sound pretty nice and blended together really well, and it makes it properly immersive. Even stuff like the sound of your dinosaur walking through a bush, or when you're stood you can just listen to the sounds of the environment and it sounds properly nice, but it's still got a little bit of quietness which still makes you think you are in that big world. It's not massively overbearing, but it blends just right. I noticed the rain in the Isle as well has different levels, and I know Path of Titans is trying to do that. There's obviously storms, but also there's times where it rains when it's overcast, just a little bit of drizzle, but with the sounds of the rain hitting the surrounding environment and even showing raindrops on the screen is also very cool. So I definitely think that while Path of Titans is slowly building their own environment ambience and overhauling environmental systems within the game, I think they could definitely take some inspiration from the ambience in the Isle, because, well, Avrima's ambience is second to none. Now, Path of Titans and the Isle's combat mechanics are vastly different from each other. Path of Titans utilizes a vast amount of separate abilities for each dinosaur, while keeping some universal ones like tail attacks and bites, but there's a high amount of customization. For the Isle, there's a lot less customization when it comes to the attacks. Most dinosaurs get a handful of attacks that are curated and unique to that dinosaur specifically. Now, it wouldn't be a good idea to say Path of Titans should follow that, because Path of Titans already has a very unique and and well-working ability system. When I'm talking about fighting mechanics, I'm talking about some very specific mechanics that the Isle has, like pinning, sparring, and abilities like that, even knockdowns, or even the hallucinations that Dilophosaurus brought. Pinning goes with pouncing, specifically for things like Herrerasaurus and the Omniraptor, which are able to pin dinosaurs that are smaller than them down while they struggle for a little bit as well, something different to the standard pouncing and latching that's in Path of Titans. Knockdowns also tie into this because dinosaurs like the Carnotaurus can briefly knock down opponents, which allows you to get a little bit of an edge. And there's equally, as I mentioned, the hallucinations from the Dilophosaurus that can also be brought to the table as well, further expanding the uniqueness of different abilities. While it's very limited, everything feels different. Now, obviously, I think the sparring mechanic is the most important one here because this can coincide with the 3 recent Ceratopsian TLCs. You're able to spar with other Ceratopsians, lock horns, push each other around, bow out of the joust, get pushed about, all that jazz. It's pretty cool, and even when you do it to another dinosaur that isn't a Ceratopsian, you can knock them down and kind of stun lock them a little bit. The extra mechanics would be great inclusions to the game. Now, I feel like knockdowns, yes, they are good in the Isle. I don't think they'd blend too well into Path of Titans just because of how vast and different the fighting is in the games. The Isle relies on those mechanics where you get that edge over people, that surprise edge. However, I definitely think sparring could be great to go alongside the Styracosaurus jousting ability, and hallucination style mechanics could be good to not even go as extra dinosaur mechanics, but maybe if you eat, poisonous plants, it could be a negative modifier. Speaking of eating, we need to talk about the diet system for the Isle. The Isle's diet system, I think, is extremely well put together. Each dinosaur has a unique set of diet requirements that fit into 3 different categories. Hitting all 3 gives benefits to your growth especially. This includes food like gastroliths or fruit, or even food that you have to knock out of trees or dig up from the ground. Each dinosaur has their own unique set and ways to get them, which means yes, there's still competition because there's a little bit of overlap, but it still means there's more variety and promotes you to move around because the food isn't all in one biome. You kind of have to go around a bit to find different diet requirements. Path of Titans currently has a very, let's say, basic diet system. Herbivores usually have the same diets but with slight deviations, but it usually boils down to can they eat from a berry bush or can they not, and what else do they have to eat from? Is it flowers or fruit or something like that? Carnivores have the whole spiel of can they eat from corpses, do they have to eat carrion, or are they only able to eat fish and shellfish? And omnivores, realistically, you only have 1 or 2 creatures there, and maybe 2 if you include eating anthills like Struthio can. I understand the diets are due an overhaul in Path of Titans, so I do think going into the Isle and having a look at what they do for the diet system is good. There's definitely stuff from the Isle's diet system that I'd leave out of it, but I do think there is some good inspiration you can take there, especially being able to knock fruit out of trees. That'd be so cool for stuff like Pachycephalosaurus or even Styracosaurus and Albertoceratops with their ramming abilities too. We move into Beasts of Bermuda now. This is a game that I have a soft spot for, and there's definitely 3 features I love in this game that can be brought forward. One of them is a little bit weaker of an argument because it's already going to happen in Path of Titans, but you can draw inspiration from it. The first one though is the underwater environments, and I'm saying it right now. The underwater in Path of Titans is lackluster. It needs overhauling, and Beasts of Bermuda, especially their Titania map, is definitely a good way to look at it. This is a beautifully crafted map on both land and in the sea, and we're talking about the oceans for this because the underwater systems of Beasts of Bermuda and the environments are great. They're a league above the Isle and Path of Titans system. For example, you've got underwater caves that link different parts of the waterways. They're even expansive. You can explore them, you can hide in them, and they can even just pop up into random ponds in the map, which means that players might even be able to interact with semi-aquatics or full aquatics in random ponds because they've ended up swimming up to them. I think the main thing for Path of Titans is that there is a severe lack of caves, especially underwater, right? I don't even think there's any underwater caves in Gondwana. If there is, then very small. I think Path of Titans having underwater caves will aid in that exploration, giving people a usage to go in the water, and then linking that to water sources, whether that's rivers or big lakes, will further increase that interactivity between aquatics and land creatures, because they're more likely to come face to face. The other thing with Beasts of Bermuda's aquatic environments is that they are blent very well together. You've got stuff to explore like sunken structures, shipwrecks, and stuff that just makes the environment a bit more like you go there and you're like, oh, this is cool, I haven't seen this before, and then you want to search for more. And it's that sense that you're lacking in Path of Titans, because most biomes follow the same thing. There's some items to pick up, they look different, but once you've been there, you don't need to go back, kind of thing. There isn't much. And it ties into the next thing that I want to talk about for the aquatic life in Beasts of Bermuda, and that can be brought forward to Path of Titans, and that is the underwater AI. We know that Path of Titans is expanding the underwater systems and the aquatic AI because they've said they're bringing aggressive fish to the game. Now, with the inclusion of Argonodus and the Chinleya fish from Beasts of Bermuda, which are akin to the current AI fish in Path of Titans, with simple aim of swimming around aimlessly and fleeing when near a player, you'd be led to believe I'm bringing this up as a silly little argument. But there is one specific thing that I want to mention here, and that is the Malawania, which is a piranhas of the oceans of Beasts of Bermuda. This is probably what full aggressive fish AI will be like in Path of Titans. They hunt you in never-ending relentless swarms, they are fast, and what's the worst of all of them is they can leap out of the water to try and nibble your toesies. And one other thing, and it's not just for the underwater AI, and I think this is actually another thing that ties into the underwater AI, or AI in general, is that in Beasts of Bermuda, there's shrines and little mini-games, kind of shrine things where you can find on the map, hidden away, that you can then become an AI in the game. You can become a Malawania, you could become an Argonodus, you could become an Aurora Ceratops, the random little critters that are running around in the undergrowth or swimming in the oceans of Beasts of Bermuda, adding that extra depth to the game. Imagine that in Path of Titans, a little secret area where you could go, where you could end up playing as a kelp shark, or maybe become a Dinomosuchus. They don't need to be complex, they could just have their bite and basic movement abilities, and that's it. Just be extremely rudimental, but just an addition to the gameplay cycle, and something to find and enjoy alongside all the dinosaurs you can play as too. And I think that will be a really good addition to the Path of Titans AI system. Now, the biggest thing from Beasts of Bermuda that I think Path of Titans could take as inspiration from is the final thing I'm listing here in this video. My favorite thing in Beasts of Bermuda is the weather events. Beasts of Bermuda is known for their weather. Floods, tornadoes, wildfires, droughts, and storms. They are a great way to force movement of players, whether that's seeking shelter or higher ground to escape the floods. The tornadoes stand out massively, being able to pick up and chuck players, and they tend to even track the largest concentration of players, making them effective tools of splitting up densely populated areas, which, if we know by Path of Titans standards, we need something like that. I know the devs are toying with bringing in AI that will, disrupt the players and make them move, but a tornado just to wreak havoc on the land to get people out of the way would be so cool. With the storms, lightning can hit the surrounding environment, or even you. If it hits you, it kills you, then can trigger tornadoes or even start a wildfire, and it can start floods. Floods caused during the storms or long rain events can cause the tides to rise dramatically and allow the aquatic creatures more room to interact and hunt down players on the land. If I had a wish list for features that were to come to Path of Titans, this would be number one. And Path of Titans have the best way to introduce this on the Gondwana map. They have a volcano which they could make erupt every now and then as a map weather event. Imagine that. That'd be so cool. They've got lightning in the game. Make that strike down on the players. But of course, I think the implementation of this stuff could be particularly tough. There's a lot of things here that mainly require Path of Titans to be either a PC and console game or just a PC game. No mobile, no Nintendo Switch. It would be very draining on those systems. Mobile, lower end consoles, lower end PCs, and of course, Switch. And so it makes, for example, the weather events, the ambience like the Isle has, the environment like the Isle has, and of course, maybe even the fight mechanics a lot harder and a lot more complicated to introduce. So there we have it. I don't know if I explained this quite well. It's 6 rambly points about stuff that I think could be inspired from the other top dinosaur games that would make good additions into Path of Titans. Now, I'm not saying that the devs should rip these features. If they were to take inspiration, I'm sure they'd probably do it in a way where they'd look at the idea and be like, okay, how can we make this unique? And that's probably the best way to go about it, because you've still got competition. You're probably expanding on their already cool idea, but making it your own idea. And that's a good thing about having competition, because it leads to innovation. Anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you could add any feature from Beasts of Bermuda or The Isle into Path of Titans, what would it be? If I've missed anything, let me know, because I've probably missed quite a bit. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed. If you are new, feel free to subscribe. I'll see you all in the next one. Have a great day. Peace.